Welcome to Pigskin Holiday Week 7. I'm Ed, the Man Parrot, here with Mario, Lights Out Spina, Carl, No Except Terry. And this first quarter is brought to you by... That's right. Alright, let's start with some NFL news like we always do. Interesting development last week, folks. You know, we discussed the trade between the Lions and the Eagles for Ronnie Brown. Well, it turned out to be a lifesaver because during the required physicals to complete the trade, Jerome Harrison, the running back from Detroit, was found to have a brain tumor. No one had a clue. He was feeling fine. He was healthy. Obviously, that voided the trade. But no trade, no physical, no finding this brain tumor. Probably saved the guy's life.
Yeah.
So he's not going to play the rest of the year. Ronnie Brown goes back to Philadelphia, and we probably never hear from those guys much more this year.
No, not this year, but I mean that's definitely a good thing that they found that.
Yeah,
because that could turn terrible in the quickness.
Terrible.
Especially, especially if they find it to be, unlike Robert Quinn's and benign, if they find it to be malignant, then it's, that's definitely a lifesaver. Literally.
Yeah, that was an interesting development to come out of Detroit. Another interesting development was in New Orleans, where Olin Kreutz just up and left the game. He said, "I don't have the passion for it no more." He don't want to collect a paycheck for just playing half-Z or half-ass. So he hoofed it out of there. Interesting. And then they go on and drug the Colts at home.
No except.
Also, the NFL went to London this week. The Buccaneers and the Bears clashed. And the interesting thing about that is one team showed up pretty early, did some sightseeing. That was Tampa Bay. Chicago showed up on Friday, treated it just like a regular game, and the difference came out in the game. Now, the Buccaneers did challenge late, and Jen got a little excited, but they fell short, and Chicago won 24-18 in London. So the NFL game over there is growing pretty well. What's interesting was it was Bucks and Bears, but there was a cheesehead there.
A cheesehead?
No. Cheesehead. Cheeseburger.
The cheeseburger.
But also, it was a record-breaking week in the NFL for various reasons. We have running backs in Dallas, receivers in Pittsburgh, we have quarterbacks in Carolina, we have tight ends in Atlanta. A lot of records going on this week, so we'll get into all that later. All right, let's first talk about San Diego and the New York Jets.
Yes.
What a great comeback victory for your Jets. They needed this.
They really did.
They had a running game.
Yeah, where's that been, man? Seriously, like Sean Green just decides, I guess, yesterday that he's a football player, actually.
Yeah.
And he decided
up until this game, Sean Green would have been getting one of those.
Yeah, who didn't do much. But yeah, he 112 yards, no touchdowns, but still 112 yards, which, I mean, definitely helps out, especially in the second half.
Definitely.
And who had all the touchdowns for the Jets?
Plaxico Burress.
Oh!
Showing up, finally, man.
So, is this the turnaround phase for the Jets?
I don't necessarily know if it's a turnaround phase, as far as it's just it's a really good win because the Chargers are, Chargers unexpectedly are doing pretty well, and generally they're slow.
It's not really unexpected though. They're expected to do that.
Yeah, but they don't really have the personnel that they've, had in the past, and so, and they're generally a second half team like we were talking about before the show. So I was definitely really surprised, and it's not really unlike the Jets to come from behind and win like that, especially Mark Sanchez. You look back at last year's AFC Championship, Steelers put 24 on them in the first half, but they come back with 19 unanswered to pull the game in, within 5. So, I mean,
that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
So, it's nice to see that kind of leadership, especially out of Mark Sanchez, who's kind of been a little, well, everybody's always just kind of shaky about him, and I don't question his leadership qualities at all. I just question his decision making as far as a football player. But that's two completely different things.
And then they were at home, so they had the home field advantage. So that wasn't too bad. So, CT, where do the Chargers go from here?
I don't know. I mean, kind of the deal with the Chargers is, like, consistently every year, they're like the best team that never makes it anywhere.
Right.
year after year. And I mean,
Which is what interesting because of the thing between Ryan and
Turner.
Turner this week.
If he, Ryan had said, I don't know if you know, but Ryan had said to Norv Turner that if he had the personnel that Norv Turner has had the past few years, that he would have at least won a Super Bowl.
And Turner said, well, I wonder if Rex has those 2 rings he's been promising the last couple of years.
yeah.
But by the way, just for the record, they did talk and do the handshake thing and all that after the game, and everything was fine.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that they're just going to be kind of straight up the middle like they have been so far. I don't see them, doing any kind of really big breakout rush for getting into the playoffs or anything like that. I don't see that out of them.
If they get there, they're not going to beat the Baltimores and the New Englands.
Hell no.
I don't even know about the Buffaloes.
No.
Which is crazy because they're there for a few years, especially whenever like Philip Rivers was brand new. They could get to a divisional round or an NFC championship and then they lose, but they would always seem like they knocked out Indy or they knock out Patriots.
Yep.
And then there's
always a big name they took down.
Exactly. Just kind of like the Jets here as of late, the last couple of years, taking down the bigger names.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, speaking of taking down, let's talk about the Houston-Tennessee game. This was actually in Tennessee, and what a drubbing they took. 41-7, Houston beat them. This is a game we wanted to go to, by the way.
It is.
This is.
And it would have been good for us going in as Houston fans, which I think all of us are. But if you like Tennessee at all, which I do, mostly for Johnson, that was awful.
17 yards, 18 yards for Johnson yesterday.
Yeah.
Did he even play? Who didn't do much?
There it is. And you would have looked at like Chris Johnson last year or the year before, and he would have sneezed and got 18 yards rushing.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's
Like,
it's so terrible. It's
my thing is Tennessee. We didn't take them seriously when the season started. Then they kind of surprised us.
Right.
They had some good games. They even beat Baltimore. For Christ's sake. No one else has beat them.
No.
But then the last 2 weeks they got beat by Pittsburgh, now by Houston, and it's like they're pulling the inconsistent card again.
But I mean, at the same time though, that's Pittsburgh and Houston. Those are 2 pretty damn tough teams.
Right, but
especially Pittsburgh, you could never ever count them out.
Right. But if you watch the Pittsburgh game against Tennessee, the first drive had a chance to score, and everything went wrong. Drop passes, penalties, overthrows, and from there they were just beat.
Yeah.
And you watched them fade out right away. And then this week, 41-7 at home. That's terrible.
That's
terrible.
I will honestly say though, but by far the most impressive thing that came out of that game is Arian Foster's day. I mean, 115 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's rushing. Not on top of his 119 yards receiving.
Yep.
And that goes along with what you've been saying about the halfbacks. That now.
That's 234 yards of offense by that man.
Right. Just
and they had no
man.
Andre Johnson there.
No, not including the 296 that Matt Shaw put up and the 2 touchdowns that he had. So
compared to Hasselbeck, who was 14 of 30 for 104 yards and 1 touch and 2 picks.
That's normal though.
That's a wah 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 wah. There we go.
So, were you surprised by this non-showing by the Titans?
To an extent, I didn't. I never once thought that they was going to beat Houston, but I figured it would be a lot closer game than what it was. I figured it would have been a situation kind of like, what was that game that was just really close that we was going to talk about later?
Green Bay, Minnesota?
Green Bay, Minnesota. Really close game.
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I figured it would be something more like that.
I was going to say Seahawks, Browns.
Oh, that was close in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Talk about who didn't do much.
Now, do you think in a game like this, Ed, this is where they really start to miss like people like Kenny Britt, like their big playmakers?
Jeff Fisher, I think is who they miss.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I just it looked like Hasselbeck sort of had a handle on things. Because at one point I commented he was a leader out there. He looked good and he took charge. They won the game after Kenny Britt left. I mean, he got hurt,
Right.
So I don't know. It's a chemistry thing, if you ask me.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know what the problem is. How about Green Bay, Minnesota?
Yeah.
Pretty good debut for Christian Ponder.
Absolutely. He gave Green Bay more of a challenge than anybody else had up until this point.
Yeah, I would say
Saints aside.
Yeah.
Saints.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And we have been talking about, it was just only a matter of time with the way that, McNabb has been playing or the way that he's not been playing.
Exactly, that's the problem.
And, you know, just everything else that's going on as far as, you know, all that whole controversy with McNabb or whatever.
So, you know, we're talking earlier about the reason that McNabb was pulled besides just performance is as a player, as a teammate, as an employee, no preparation, no commitment, show up late to meetings and practices, figure you're going to get by on talent alone.
Oh yeah.
Don't cut it in the NFL.
You know, and this is the third head coach to defend him, and this is the third team that's come up with allegations that he's lazy, that he doesn't really, you know, that he just tries to get by on talent. So you kind of get to a point to where, like, you know, are these teams actually? These teams are really starting to. You really think that like these teams are telling the truth, and the coaches are just defending their player because they have to.
When you watch McNabb on an interview, don't you kind of see that?
Yeah, there's an arrogance.
He's real.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you would think that after one time of that would have been enough to not be sliding by on talent, because obviously he does not have enough to be doing that. And then to have that kind of an attitude, to not show up, not be there with your team doing what you're supposed to be doing, that not only affects the team as a whole, but that shows what kind of a person you are.
Well, you look at guys
as well
like
as what kind of a football player you are.
You look at guys like in Detroit, Stafford, and Ryan in Atlanta, even Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh. These guys are early in there. They're at first one in, last one out. They're you know they make an example for the teammates. But CT, do you think that with pulling McNabb and starting Ponder, that the team had kind of like a fresh, let's do this. Now we feel a little better.
Absolutely.
Let's go out there
I
and do this as a team.
They had somebody that was hungry for it, that had something to prove, and I think he did a really good job, especially considering the team he was playing against.
Yeah.
With that defense plus that offense he had to compete against, and putting on the kind of numbers that they did. Nobody else has done that, like I said, except for the Saints.
You know, and if this was a first game scenario, if this was game one, people wouldn't be talking about. People would be talking about the Packers win just because it's the reigning Super Bowl champions, you know, and it would just be the normal rigmarole with that. But I think really the bigger story would be Christian Ponder's day, because he really did have. I mean, like he didn't have an absolutely lights out amazing day, but I mean, as far as his first game in the NFL, I would be proud of the day that I had.
Well, I mean, the loss that Carolina had, they spent more time talking on Cam Newton and what he did than the fact that they lost and the other team won.
Yeah.
I don't even remember who they played at this point. Just for the sole fact that there's been so much focus on him and how he's been playing.
Yeah.
And I think that if they would have done a similar deal, that we would be hearing a lot of the same kind of stuff. Probably not nearly to the same extent, but you know, real good performance by a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, but you know, you look at Ponder, and you know, he's not the athlete per se that Cam Newton is. Cam Newton is an electrifying athlete, you know, in the form of a Vic or a Randall, you know, Cunningham back in the day. I mean, he's moving around. He's very exciting to watch.
Yeah.
Where this guy's more of a Brady or guys like that get the job done. You know.
Yeah.
But here's what I want to look at. This is what's interesting about the offense that Minnesota put on the field yesterday. They ran the ball enough that Peterson got 175 yards and a touch. They also threw the ball 32 times, which gave Ponder a chance to get in the rhythm of the game.
Right.
Spread the ball between rushing and passing and give the team as a whole a chance. I mean, he only completed 13 of those passes, but you know that'll get better.
Yeah.
219 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. I mean, so if you look at that, the game plan gave him a chance to work.
And you got to figure your first 2 quarters as your first game in the NFL. You're probably a little rocky. You're a little shaky. You're a little trigger happy, especially. So.
And on top of that, you're playing against Green Bay, the only undefeated team right now.
Right.
With one of, if not the best defense going right now.
Right. Very true.
So.
And before we get off the subject, let's just mention how good Rodgers was, like always. 24 of 30, 335 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Go Jan! Yay! And then, of course, Rodgers looking like the MVP right now. Packers look unbeatable. But let's just talk about the possibilities. If you would point a quick finger at who they could get losses by, there'd only be 2: Detroit and Chicago as the 2 threats. We mentioned Chicago early on because it's one of them games. Green Bay, Chicago is always a good game.
Right. Right.
So you know, but Chicago, like you said, they're kind of like the Giants. They're not super consistent.
Yeah.
Or San Diego right now, for that matter.
Right.
Yeah.
But
more so the Giants, though.
Either way, the Packers will be, I'm pretty sure, unless something really strange happens in the NFC Championship.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I don't see them not being there. Watch the sheep.
Absolute vodka. Drink it. No.
It is good.
All right.
Liquid potato.